So, when you were younger, I'd still think you're young.
Stop.
So when you were younger, what was your earliest memory of when you first gained interest in politics?
It's interesting. I can't think of as a young, as a kid, as a teenager, or even as a young adult being interested in politics.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been interested in seeing how things are working around me. I mean, okay, my mom was a school social worker, so there was always that service portion of our lives, and she's a lot of discussions about there's just always talks about who had power and who didn't have power and why, which I think was really important growing up. And then my dad was he was a Marine. He was in the Vietnam War, and he was a firefighter. So if anything, I guess and this isn't really politics, but I learned early on that the union that he belonged to was what helped us to buy our first house after we rented a bunch of places, that kept him safe, made sure that there were rules to make him safe when he went into burning houses, that gave us good health insurance, that was because before he was in the fire department, he was laid off from a series of jobs. And, I can remember really early on my parents talking about, no money. There's we got very little food left, and, they were very stressed out about, but when my dad became a firefighter, that union really saved that. So I think that my most basic memory of what could be seen as political is that whole idea of organized labor is beneficial to everybody, because I saw it. And then, honestly, I would say that I was always a Democrat. I always voted that way. I always was interested in following candidates. But it wasn't until the 2016 election, and shame on me, because up until that night, I really thought that things were always going to be okay for me, middle class, white, married with 2 kids, college educated woman. But it was honestly that moment where my husband and I looked at each other and said, it's not going to be okay. And that it was we started an indivisible group called Left of the Eye, because we live west of the interstate. And that was the beginning of being political. And it's honestly been constant since then.
Sure.
But it did start with the realization of that, good jobs and protections don't just happen. It's because people have fought for it before us in the form of labor unions.
Okay. Good.
That was a long answer. You can just edit all that out if you want to.
No, it's okay.